One driver's death changed the history of F1 forever. Another driver illegally cheated in order to win his team the race. These are F1 drivers that forced rule changes. And first, we have to talk about the driver who changed more rules than any other person in F1 history. See, Max Verstappen burst onto the scene at just 17 years old, becoming not only the youngest driver to ever compete in Formula 1, but also the youngest to ever win a major event. But the young prodigy had a problem. See, veteran drivers didn't exactly like racing against someone who couldn't legally hold a normal driver's license. The young rookie was known for driving super aggressively and limit testing all the rules F1 put in place to see what he could get away with. So, shortly after his debut, the FIA changed their rules for rookie drivers, stating that they had to be at least 18 years old before driving in the most prestigious racing league in the world. And his aggressive driving forced another rule change just 2 years into his career. See, other drivers hated Verstappen for his unpredictable movements while braking. To defend against other drivers overtaking him during turns, Max would erratically swerve while braking, forcing other drivers to move into unfavorable positions if they didn't want to crash into him.
Because I move first, so don't move after that. I have nothing that I could do once I have decided to go inside, and he turns after that in front of me.
This posed a major hazard to other racers who weren't used to the aggressive tactics and had no idea how to defend against them. And after a close call in the 2016 Japanese Grand Prix, the FIA racing director was forced to make a new rule, stating that it was illegal for any driver to move erratically or go unnecessarily slowly while braking if it could endanger another driver. But Verstappen always found a technically legal way to find any small advantage over his fellow drivers, even if it meant pulling off some sketchy-looking moves. During the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Max pulled out a never-before-seen strategy by lining up his vehicle directly alongside the lead safety car right before restarting the race. This not only confused other drivers, but posed a serious safety risk as Max was ready to floor it as soon as the safety car pulled away. Even F1 veteran and 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton was confused by this new strategy, losing the 2021 championship race to Verstappen because of it. And after Max was caught doing it again the following season, the FIA racing director had to make it clear that this would no longer be tolerated. But while this change was for the health and safety of all F1 drivers, this next rule looked like the FIA was just hating on Max for no reason. See, after winning the Syrian Grand Prix in 2021, Max celebrated his victory by doing this.
Max Verstappen slows down to take the checkered flag and absolutely crush the opposition here at the Red Bull Ring. He wins!
And while it seems like a perfectly normal way to celebrate a big win, the FIA was not happy about it, stating that burnout celebrations ruined the competitive nature of the sport and would not be tolerated in the future. But while Verstappen forced more rule changes in the past several years than most drivers would in their entire career, Ayrton Senna was responsible for the single biggest change in the history of the sport. See, back in the day, Formula 1 had a weird rule which stated that only a driver's 11 best races were used to calculate the score for the season. And for a while, no one really questioned it because the driver who had the most points at the end of the season usually had the best score in those 11 races anyway. But this all changed in 1988 when at the end of the season, the driver with the most championship points was robbed of their rightful victory. See, Alain Prost of Team McLaren dominated the track that year, finishing top 2 in every single race he completed and racking up a whopping 105 championship points at the end of the year. And while his rival Ayrton Senna had a fantastic season himself, he ended the year with only 94 championship points. But because of the strange rule that had been in place since 1967, Senna was crowned Formula 1 champion despite being outscored by his own teammate.
Look, he's saying to the camera, I am number one, I've done it. He's very happy indeed.
This caused outrage in the F1 community, who felt Prost deserved to win the championship due to his higher placement. And shockingly, it took the FIA until the 1991 season to officially change the scoring system to what we know it as today. But just like Senna, there's another F1 driver who permanently changed the fate of Formula 1 forever. See, Jules Bianchi was a rising up and comer in the sport, grinding through the Formula 3 and GP2 circuits until he finally got a shot to race in the big leagues. It was Bianchi's dream to make a name for himself in Formula 1, but no one could have predicted the legacy Bianchi would leave. See, during the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix, Bianchi was racing in extreme weather conditions that would make even the most experienced drivers nervous. While heading into the infamous Dunlop curve, on lap 43, Jules lost control of his race car and collided with a recovery vehicle that was removing another driver's damaged Sauber, which had crashed in the same spot just one lap before. Bianchi hit the recovery vehicle with such force that it was lifted up into the air, causing it to drop Adrian Sutil's car on top of his. After being rushed to the hospital, Jules remained in critical condition as he fought for his life after falling into a coma.
Our thoughts are with him. I think all the drivers can feel what happened, because we know how tricky it was today. So we hope for very, very good news.
Tragically, Bianchi passed away 9 months later as a result of his head injuries. This was the first time in over 20 years that an F1 driver died from injuries sustained during a Grand Prix, and the FIA did everything possible to make sure a tragedy like this never happened again. They spent years improving their safety measures, developing the Halo driver crash protection system, and requiring every vehicle to be equipped with it to prevent further injuries. The Halo system was credited with saving multiple drivers' lives, most famously Romain Grosjean after his nasty crash during the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix. Jules Bianchi would go down in history as the driver whose death finally pushed the FIA to make racing as safe as it possibly could be. But this wasn't the first time a driver's crash forced the FIA to make drastic changes to their rulebook. See, all the way back in 1976, Austrian racing legend Niki Lauda was competing at the famously difficult Nürburgring circuit. During the second lap of the German Grand Prix, Lauda's Ferrari swerved off the track and burst into flames after colliding with the barrier. Trapped inside his car, several other racers got out of their vehicles in a desperate attempt to save him from the raging fire. After being pulled from the wreckage and rushed to the hospital, Lauda miraculously survived but suffered major burn damage and scarring, which required extensive reconstructive surgery. But the entire accident could have been avoided in the first place. See, days before the Grand Prix took place, Lauda organized his fellow racers to boycott the event, saying that the track was far too dangerous and the FIA wasn't taking the driver's safety seriously. Sadly, not enough people supported his boycott, and due to pressure from his team, Lauda decided to race despite knowing the risks. But after his near-fatal crash, the FIA had no choice but to re-examine the Nürburgring. After extensive safety tests and research, the FIA determined there was no way to make the track safe enough for racers, forcing them to permanently remove it from the F1 competition. But not all F1 crashes are accidents. Some were done on purpose to gain an unfair advantage. See, during the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, Brazilian driver Nelson Piquet Jr. did the unthinkable. He purposely crashed his car into the circuit wall at 62 miles per hour, forcing a safety car deployment and causing all the other racers behind him to slow down. And back in 2008, F1 regulations stated that drivers weren't allowed to enter the pit during a safety car deployment, forcing the drivers to burn precious fuel as they circled the track until the wreckage was cleared. But Piquet's teammate Fernando Alonso had suspiciously refueled moments before the crash took place. When the safety car left the track, Alonso had a massive advantage as he didn't have to waste any time refueling his vehicle. Due to the timing of his last pit, Alonso was able to easily win the Grand Prix despite being behind driver Felipe Massa for nearly 2/3 of the race. Shockingly, this one crash was the difference between Massa winning and losing the 2008 F1 championship, as he ended up in second place to driver Lewis Hamilton by only 1 point at the end of the year. But the FIA had no idea the crash was intentional, and they would have never found out if Piquet Jr. himself didn't admit to it. See, after being dropped by Renault the following year due to his poor performance, Piquet Jr. admitted that he conspired with his team to give Alonso an unfair advantage. The FIA immediately responded, passing new rules that prevented drivers from fixing the outcome of races, including by purposefully crashing their vehicles. After the controversy was brought to light, Renault was charged with illegally interfering with the outcome of the race. After being found guilty, Renault was disqualified from Formula 1 and received a 2-year suspension. Renault's manager at the time, Flavio Briatore, was permanently banned from all official FIA-sanctioned events, and their executive engineer, Pat Simons, also received a 5-year suspension. But that wasn't the first time an F1 team got in trouble for forcing their drivers to make questionable decisions. See, heading into the 2002 Austrian Grand Prix, Ferrari's Michael Schumacher was absolutely dominating the competition, winning 4 of the first 5 races of the season and easily being the favorite to win it all in the A1 ring. But Schumacher's teammate Rubens Barrichello had other plans, dominating the track from the very beginning and holding a commanding first-place lead for the majority of the race. However, Ferrari made a controversial decision near the end of the race, instructing Barrichello to slow down and let Schumacher take the victory. But Barrichello had a first-place finish in mind and continued to drive without any signs of slowing down. With the pressure from his team becoming too difficult to ignore, Rubens slowed down at the very last second and let Schumacher steal the victory from underneath him. While it was technically within the rules to follow any orders imposed by the team, F1 fans were shocked that a driver would simply give up a guaranteed win. To make matters worse, during the victory celebration, Schumacher stepped down from the top of the podium, pushing Barrichello to the top and even awkwardly handing him the winner's trophy. While the FIA couldn't punish Ferrari for breaking any rules during the race, they penalized them with an €800,000 fine for breaking the standards of a podium celebration. The very next year, the FIA outlawed all team orders, ensuring that no team would ever be able to decide the outcome of the race unnaturally. But while the FIA kept Schumacher in line with their rule changes, another F1 legend forced the FIA to bend the rules to his liking. See, Lewis Hamilton is one of the greatest drivers in F1 history. So when he complained about a silly rule the F1 tried to enforce, fans and other racers alike voiced their support. Prior to the start of the 2023 season, the FIA tightened its restrictions on wearing jewelry during racing events. But Hamilton is famously known for his style and impressive jewelry collection. In protest of the new rule, Hamilton refused to race at the 2023 Bahrain Grand Prix, saying that the FIA had bigger fish to fry than limiting a driver's ability to freely express themselves.
I feel like it's almost like a step backwards if you think of the steps we're taking as a sport and the more important issues and causes that we need to be focused on.
The FIA claimed the jewelry ban was for the health and safety of all drivers, but Hamilton doubled down and said it would be medically impossible for him not to wear jewelry, as he had several piercings that were literally welded into his body. Other drivers supported Hamilton, saying that they should be able to wear small pieces that didn't interfere with the integrity of the sport. After some debate, the FIA folded and granted a medical exception for Hamilton and his jewelry. But that's not the only thing Hamilton helped change in recent years. See, in the 2022 season, Hamilton and Mercedes had some issues with porpoising, which is when a car drives so fast and low to the ground, the downforce would cause the car to stall and start bouncing up and down uncontrollably. Hamilton had an issue with this, saying he would get very sore on particularly bumpy or fast tracks, causing Formula 1 to take a closer look at it. So in 2023, the FIA did something about it. They raised the car by 15mm and hardened the edges, creating a more comfortable experience for the drivers. These were F1 drivers that forced rule changes. Make sure to like and subscribe for the best F1 content out there.